Mandrill.com, and by Turnstone. More than furniture, Turnstone is an experience. Go to myturnstone.com/twist to learn more and receive 10% off your first order. And Amazon Web Services, the fastest growing, hottest startups build their businesses on Amazon Web Services. Learn more at aws.amazon.com/startups.
Hey everybody, it's Jason Calacanis. Welcome to This Week in Startups. We've got an action-packed news roundtable, Twitter file for their IPO. As you may have heard, Apple released the iPhone 5C, as in Clueless, and the 5S. Michael Dell took Dell private, nobody cares, and a bunch of stuff launched this week, new startups, and with me to discuss it, Ben Parr of the Dominate Fund. They will dominate you and the industry. And Jessica Lessin, formerly of the Wall Street Journal, and soon to be launching her own technology website, blog, something she's going to tell us. Stick with us. It's going to be an amazing episode.
That's what it's all about, man. They said money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you. Yeah. Money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you.
Hey everybody, running a professional operation here at This Week in Startups. It's going to be an amazing episode, but a little bit of housekeeping, Launch Mobile and Wearables, an event we're doing. It's super expensive. We're charging $5,000 a ticket, except for the startups who we invite as our guest, because we're good like that. Launch Mobile and Wearables, 2 days, 67 speakers. It's going to be awesome. If you're a CTO, VP, business development, or other person with a corporate card that can afford a $5,000 ticket, go to mobile.launch.co. And if you're one of those businesses that wants to impress the 250 awesome people coming, email demont@launch.co and buy everybody lunch or something like that. TWiST Live, This Week in Startups, is going to be live. Go to twistlive.launch.co. October 4th in San Francisco, here at WeWork. Thanks for WeWork for building me an awesome studio. Steve Jurvetson, yes, the guy who invested in SpaceX and Tesla when nobody else would. He is a brilliant venture capitalist from Draper Fisher Jurvetson, and he's going to be my guest October 4th in San Francisco. Then October 10th in New York City, Alexis from Reddit. Wow, huge guest, huge site. Going to be a great discussion October 10th in New York. Finally, I'm going to go up to Beantown in Boston. Red Sox sucks. Yankees are great. But putting that aside, October 11th in Boston, Bill Warner, legendary angel investor, and created Avid, which is a pretty cool thing to have built. And he's just an awesome guy. He's got a lot of great insights. So join us for that. With me today in studio, Jessica Lessin, formerly of the Wall Street Journal, now with some sort of, it's at jessicalessin.com.
We're writing from time to time on jessicalessin.com until we launch our site, which will be out in the coming months, aka when it's done. My designers respond to my phone calls.
What's it called? What's the name of the site?
We'll announce the name at launch.
You will?
We will.
At my conference launch or at the launch?
At the launch. I don't know. Well, we don't have I'm not hiding a launch date. It's TBD.
Okay, but be honest. Do you have a name picked out and you're just holding it back, or you're figuring out the name?
We've got a lot of contenders.
Oh, okay.
So we're moving on the name.
You gotta sit on a good name for a little while.
Just do
gotta
with
bake.
it.
Yes, I agree. I'm still trying to figure out if inside.com is a good name or not.
I like it.
You think?
I like it too.
It's short
got some
and
potential.
simple.
Yeah,
Short and simple.
I think that's a pretty good $1 million domain name. Hey, and Ben Parr is with us, of course. Welcome back to the program. Formerly an entrepreneur, now an investor with the Dominate Fund. Explain to us, how big is the Dominate Fund? You a micro VC?
Well, most of our investments are between 50 and 500K, so it kind of depends. We're not as big as, say, like a first round capital, but we're not as small as, say, a
Angel investor.
Yeah. So somewhere in the middle there.
We 10, 20 million buck kind of
Yeah,
thing?
because
you haven't announced it yet.
No, that'll be happening soon.
Oh, okay, because SEC stuff, right? You
Yeah.
got to be cool about that. So that means you're actively raising, and we shouldn't talk about that.
I can't say anything.
All right, just to fill the
We have
audience
two
in.
people who can't say anything.
Yeah, I got two guests.
We can talk about
two guests with
the
nothing
news.
to say.
Yeah,
There we go.
Exactly.
Ben, Jessica's got a site that's going to come out at some point, and Ben has a fund that will be I know the rules. So you're actively raising, probably, you can't say. But what drew you to wanting to be an investor now?
It's frankly much more fun than being a journalist, for me at least. It's a little different. So journalism is a lot of fun. You get to meet amazing people. You get to make a lot of impact, but it can be a bit of a grind, especially like at a blog where you got to write like 10, 12, 14. For me, it was just being hands-on with a lot of companies, and like I get to work, like I can talk about some of the companies, like Ubeam is one of our investments, and work with Mara Perry on like building wireless technology, power technology. That kind of stuff is just fun. Lots of fun. I love it.
Normally, I would be against most journalists becoming investors, but with you, I think it's going to work out great because you got good insights. You knew how to pick stories. You were more like an editor-in-chief, right? Like you did a lot of the assigning of stories as well, or picking them?
I was co-editor for about 3 years, so most of my time was actually the management and the assigning of stories to reporters.
You know when people are BSing you. You got the good BS meter.
I'd like to think so.
I think that's what's good as a journalist. Like Michael Moritz was a journalist, and he could tell.
And he's done a fantastic
Arrington
job.
was a journalist who then became a venture capitalist. But for most, it doesn't work. MG Siegler, I guess, would be another one. Who else is a journalist, Jessica, who became a VC?
A lot of journalists are going to work for VCs. A lot of my former colleagues at the Journal, but not necessarily as investors. So
really?
Also in different content marketing strategy functions.
Stuart Alsop too.
That's true, right.
Yeah, he's done a good job. He's very quiet about it, but he's done a good job.
You had opportunities to be a VCI here.
Did you? I have never been
I made
offered
that
a
up. It was
VC
just
job
me.
in my life. See,
Really?
that's not how we do reporting over at our new publication.
See, that was just me trying to get that.
Yeah,
I
no.
heard that. I actually didn't. I
There are
You never-
overlapping skill sets for sure that I think Ben represents, but I love writing. I love, I don't know, I wouldn't want to actually put my money
You get a
behind
lot
it
of
and
good
stuff.
scoops, too. You're like
Thank you,
Kara
sir.
Swisher. You and her get great scoops.
It's
We
quality.
hustle.
You talk to people in person and you have coffee. I know the tricks.
You call people before you publish stories.
You call people before you publish stories, really? Some other tech publications that shall remain nameless. Well, here's something that we don't have to confirm because it was tweeted. Twitter has filed a confidential IPO, according to the filing, and they have under $1 billion in revenue is what that means. People are saying 10, 15 $1 billion valuation, $500 million in revenue. Jessica, Facebook obviously on a tear and got their stock price back up. I guess that means Twitter is probably, that has to impact Twitter's reasoning for filing.
I think it might be. I mean, I actually don't know. The timing was kind of curious to me. I mean, we were hearing a lot that they weren't in any rush and that maybe they wanted to get some growth metrics like revenue, like usage up. But I mean, I think if you look at the space now, you looked at Facebook, you look at LinkedIn, the tech sector valuations are pretty good. They're probably trying to ride some of that.
They're probably also trying to keep under that $1 billion revenue mark because once you pass that, then you got to put all those papers public. If you're somewhere close to that and you expect to eventually go over it, you want to file for IPO before then.
Yeah, and this is some new regulation. This is part of the Jobs Act, I guess, that if you're under $1 billion, you don't have to do this.
A lot of companies have done it this year. Like, there's been more smaller IPOs in general. Just people don't talk about it and hear about it much because they're all secret IPOs.
Yeah, I think these smaller IPOs, though, is a good sign for the market that there's some, at least investor interest in technology companies. Again, I mean, what did we take, a decade off after the dot-com bubble? For the small ones. Obviously, big ones people weren't scared of, but it's nice to see some of the smaller ones. Was it Trulia or Redfin went out, or one of the real estate
There have
ones?
also been a bunch of enterprise, so I think the start of the year that have done pretty well and people have been excited about. But Twitter, I mean, this is going to be a benchmark, a watershed, whatever you call it. I mean, I think it will reestablish the mood around where we are in the cycle. And it's going to be interesting to watch, and not having the financials at this point, although you'd imagine some of that's going to come out on the roadshow.
Yeah, but you have to think about it. They only get about 3 or 4 weeks, like retail investors, to like look at that paperwork if it doesn't leak beforehand, which who knows.
Right.
But if that doesn't leak until then there's only a couple weeks. So I'm kind of curious also to see how the secret IPO changes the way like people do investing and people look. My theory is it would actually help Twitter in general because it will have less time to analyze and find more flaws. You find more flaws as the months go on. Like think Groupon.
But I think there's such scrutiny on this company and its financials, and so many people from those in this room and outside who are going to be digging into it. It's hard to imagine it's not going to be fully dissected to the degree that
You have to
it'll be out there.
If you're IPOing these days, after what happened in the dot-com bust, and even after Groupon and Zynga imploding, I mean, it seems like the investors are very thorough today. You cannot get something past them. You agree?
So I think the more institutional ones, absolutely. Retail, just the retail general ones, they don't do as much of that research. Like the retail investors is what really pushed that Facebook IPO up. It wasn't more of the traditional, large group investors. They will always do their research, and they'll have information long before, and they'll know. But the retail investors will be like, I love Twitter. Like that's going to be a reason people buy. Lots of people.
And they have real revenue now. Adam Bain joined the company. You see the ads, television. A lot of big brands are in love with the advertising, but the growth seems to be low in terms of the user base. They seem to be stuck at this 200 million or so monthly active uniques.
There was a story, I think, was
Kara
like
Swisher.
Kara, 240 or so.
Peter Kafka.
Oh, Peter Kafka. We'll take it back.
All things D.
All things D, right? So Peter Kafka says 240
and Mike Isaac.
Instead of 400,000 was the 400 million was the expectation.
I think that's interesting. I don't have any direct reporting on it, but to me, you can't underestimate Twitter just because of its reach. But growth is at this point. They've got to be showing it, right? I think revenue. No one really knows. I think what Twitter's revenues are currently. Obviously, there are estimates out there about 500 million, but it's hard to tell. But I think all people really care is how fast it's growing, right? And I think the All Things D piece definitely raised that question today.
Do you think that can change at all?
The growth?
Yeah, the growth. Because I worry because my sister doesn't use it, my mother doesn't use it, except to look at my tweets once in a while. My girlfriend doesn't use it. Because it's like there's so many like these little like idiosyncrasies about it.
Is it too complicated for the sort of civilians out there?
Try explaining a retweet versus a modified tweet to somebody.
Right. But I also think we were like hyper users as journalists and media people, but as it gets embedded into more platforms, and I think there's still growth out there to be captured, even if, people aren't using it at the sort of power user way. You see it continuing to become more ubiquitous. I was actually a Twitter bear for much of the early years of writing about the company, but I'm very much changing my tune in that I think that the growth and momentum is really interesting, and I'm just sort of curious to figure out more about how quickly the business side is coming together, but it does seem like they have a lot of momentum on that front.
Some people seem to think Twitter is for people who are sort of looking towards the future and people who are involved in dialogues, and maybe Facebook is for your family and your friends and sort of the past. Will you guys buy that? That it's like sort of the intellectuals are going to Twitter to debate stuff, the artists? Because you don't see famous people on Facebook, really. And Facebook's really trying to get famous people. They have a group of people down in Hollywood trying to get Lady Gaga and all these people. I've talked to a couple of celebrity managers who say, like, Facebook is desperate. They're really paranoid about the fact that Twitter has all the celebrities and they have none, basically, engaging the platform. What do you think of that?
I think they're actually pretty complementary products. I think as time's passed, they've diverged in their use case. To me, Twitter is real-time conversations, instantly talk about anything with kind of anyone. But Facebook, to me, is an identity platform. It's messaging. It's where I sort of browse content, but I don't expect to have real-time conversations about content on Facebook. And if that's an opportunity they want to chase, I think they have to do a better job at it. But I see them sort of over time. I use them very, very, very differently.
They seem complementary. What do you think the market cap will be end of day one? Let's play end of day one of the IPO. Let's play a little game here. Winner buys a loser by the biggest margin, buys lunch. The three of us will go for sushi. We'll cap it at $100 a person.
I think we still have a sushi bet from the last time it was on.
Do
the
we?
show.
Or have to look that up?
Yeah,
take a memo, Brandis.
You want?
Sure.
I have a number in mind, but
I have a number. Oh, everybody write it down on a piece of paper. Then we'll hold it. That's the fair way to do it. Okay, I have mine. All right, here we go. All right.
Can we explain our rationale?
Of course, we're going to totally explain. Ready? And we're going to hold it up. 1, 2. Can't be arranged. Got to be a single number. Okay. 1, 2, 3. All right. I see 13 billion from Jessica. 13.2 billion. Did you see her write 13 and you did the Price is Right thing, Ben?
No, I was.
Okay, and I have 16 billion. Okay, good. I like my spread right now.
Okay.
All right. Explain.
We're so in narrow. This is very funny.
It's
funny. Okay, so how do you get to 13 billion?
So I drew on my Wall Street Journal background. No,
yes.
I think, so if you look next year, most bullish case, I think $1 billion in revenue maybe, although doesn't seem like it's that, but you apply profit margins are probably 30 to 40%, which is very high, but I think that's real.
Okay.
So if you do that, you put a multiple on it like Google, LinkedIn right now, you're sort of around, I did the math, you're around 10 billion, but I think that there's an exuberance premium that you should apply and that will probably be applied. So that's how I got that number.
That's very interesting. That's how I did it too. I said it's probably 50x whatever their profit is. I put their profit to 300 million.
Okay.
So you do that, you get to 15, 16 billion. Well, how did you get your number? You just you cheated off Jessica. Just like you got to high school, Ben.
Here's how I think about it. There's an actual baseline true value, and frankly, that value is much lower. And then you have an added value for it being a hot company that people want. And then I add an additional value on top of that based on the fact it's a secret IPO. I really do believe that will play a larger factor than people might think.
Interesting.
Because there'll be so much attention in the last couple weeks on the numbers that won't. I really do think that there'll be a lot more dissection at that time. And just as a fact, it won't get through everything, and people more retail investors will drive it up. I really do think that.
All right, when we get back from commercial break, we're going to talk about Apple revealing the iPhone 5C and 5S, and Michael Dell taking Dell private. Plus, we're going to talk about bros behaving badly at the TechCrunch Disrupt event, tit stare and mock masturbation on stage, plus the Pax Dickerson debacle at Business Insider. Hey, thanks Mandrill app for sponsoring the program. If you don't know what they do, it's transactional email. If you don't know what transactional email is, let me explain to you. Anytime you get a password reset or a friend request or an update from a startup or a big company, that's transactional email. It is the lifeblood of startups, especially if you want to get engagement and re-engagement with your customers going. And Mandrill has servers all over the world, so delivery is instantaneous everywhere. And the speed is really critical. Real-time analysis, monitor performance, and make improvements easily. Mobile apps, iOS and Android, of course. Troubleshooting issues from anywhere. And they're rolling out new features every single week, A/B split testing. It's super easy to get started, and the pricing is incredible. First 12,000 emails a month are free. Yes, you heard me correct. Free, F-R-E-E, free. Sign up at mandrill.com. And there's no feature gating, so all the features are available to all users. Mandrill is a great company a great product from the company that you know and love, MailChimp. Just think man holding a drill, right? M-A-N-D-R-I-L-L, mandrill.com. Thank Mandrill app on Twitter. Thanks so much for sponsoring the program, Mandrill. All right, before we left for commercial break, we were talking about Apple. We're talking about Twitter, but let's talk about the iPhone. It's 75 hours later. Fred Wilson says the C is not for cheap, it's for clueless. What do you guys think about the iPhone? Let's start with the 5C.
5C. So my takeaway 75 hours later is that Apple was great, not just with products, but with marketing at their event. I mean, I think the fact that we had Johnny Ive on his video talking about the bespoke plastic to this iPhone 5C. You guys can go watch it. They've made the 5C, which is the less expensive of the of the two models, a really hot item. You've got bloggers gushing about it and talking about how this is the phone to have, and this is Apple's marketing machine at its best. I mean, the reality is it's the older version. With a new exterior, a bespoke exterior. And I think they did a great job in really whetting a lot of appetite for these two products. I mean, if you look at it, it's basically an older iPhone in a
sexy case.
In a sexy case. And I think it will do quite well. And I think, this debate about is it cheap enough? Is it cheap enough for China? I think that's kind of a red herring. I mean, the prices of these things are going to go down. And what we have here is a new, less expensive product line that they're going to put all their marketing might behind, and that they've managed to convince a lot of people is a really sexy product to have. And
all right, we'll get to the 5S in a second. But Ben, the 5C, I mean, the colors, the plastic casing. Didn't we see this from Lumia, or Luma, whatever it's called, Lumia. Thank you. The Lumia looked the exact same. It seems like they just stole the colors from the Lumia, and the whole thing with the color of the case matches the background color of the actual desktop or the screen. I mean, what was this innovative for you, the 5C? Was it disappointing?
It's a throwback. It's a throwback to those original iMacs with all the different colors. That's how I thought about it.
iPods.
And the iPods. well, first of all, Jessica here is like one of the leading experts at Apple, period.
Right.
I'd be crazy to go against her, but I completely agree with you that the 5C is a really like smart move. I think it's going to sell like hotcakes. It's going to be a fashion item. It's going to be a fashion accessory. I think people don't realize like these phones are now the fashion accessory. It used to be like cars and other things, but phones are a fashion accessory.
Wasn't this supposed to catch up their market share? Wasn't this supposed to let them catch up to Android? It's still $100 or $200 more than an Android phone.
That's what the press was trying to say. But clearly, this is like I bet you the margins are really quite great on these phones because it's using iPhone 5 technology, right?
It's too great. Most people would argue the margin's too much. Why didn't they make it free or $49 or something? It just seems too expensive.
But that's not what Apple is. Apple is not about having really, really like cheap devices flood a market. They're about standard of quality, and they're never going to go down from it, no matter how many people say, make a cheap phone.
And the reality is they don't have to at this point. I mean, I think that there's still a lot of growth left in the iPhone line. If you look at, I mean, this will help them in China and with new carrier deals there. So they obviously think that they can continue to get some growth without going after that part of the market.
They have such small market share now compared to Android. It's becoming like they might be, they're under 20% market share.
Share isn't the way to truly measure. I think
it's one way. I don't think it's the only way. But so when we ask, when I ask Phil Schiller about this stuff or whatever, they'll say market share isn't important. They'll dispute the figures. They'll quote customer satisfaction surveys like up the wazoo. And there's some truth to that. But I think you're right. If they become too marginal, they're not the platform, they're not the app ecosystem, they're not everything else. There's no evidence I've seen, though, that developers are moving off iOS just because Android has continued to grow.
But what about where they'll develop first? I mean, Ben, if you invest in a company, and right now we're talking about 70% for Android, 15% for Apple, where should they logically start?
But it's also where the money is, right? So the pure market share breakdown, and most developers say they're still making far more or a lot more money on iOS.
Double, probably.
Now the gap is closing, absolutely, and so that's the real challenge, I think, for Apple. But releasing a totally free phone isn't going to help them solve that problem. They just need to keep innovating on the software and everything else to solve that problem.
Let's go to the 5S, 64-bit. Processor, twice as fast as the last phone, a magnitude more than the 3G and, the 4S, and great camera. And the for me, the highlight was the fingerprint technology on the Start phone. What impact do you think, Ben, the 5S is going to have? How innovative is it?
Oh, I want that fingerprint technology. I really do. That's going to be great to use. The speed, I think there's a couple things. Like, there's one thing I really want from all the smartphone manufacturers, which is which is some kind of innovation on the battery side.
Totally.
I mean, that's what I think Apple, and I've said it before, should be investing lots of money into. That could be a game changer. But overall, this phone, like, they didn't need to like completely renovate the whole thing. Making it twice as fast is great, and the camera, having the dual flash is great, and having the fingerprint technology, like to open things, like typing in the password every time is just annoying.
Yeah, I mean, it's very powerful. Let's go to the battery thing. That was interesting that you brought that up. They were able to extend the battery life on MacBook Airs significantly, right? It went from 5-6 hours to 12. They almost doubled it in some cases. But on the iPhone, we're seeing the same exact. Why isn't that a priority, do you think?
I think it's hard. I mean, I think that the technologies industry-wide that are going to give us the next order of magnitude of improvements just aren't there yet. And I know that Apple actually bought a company called Passive that does chips with very low energy and therefore battery retaining sort of things. So I know it's a huge focus, but I think that industry-wide we're just not getting the next level yet. And it's a pain in the butt.
Would you guys accept a phone that was 20% bigger and or weighed 20% more that had, 40% more battery life?
Everyone does it. It's called Mophie.
I know, but would you
I
like
just
to see
put chargers everywhere, to be honest. So I wouldn't.
Yeah. You like the small form factor? You wouldn't want a fatter phone?
I actually would like a bigger screen, to be honest, and I use a Galaxy as well for that purpose. But
I carry two chargers with me at all times.
What a pain in the ass this is. I just want them
I would do a bigger phone for more battery, but the thing about it is that the battery technology in general just haven't changed. It's the same basic structure as it was. Like, think about it this way. The AA and the AAA battery haven't changed in terms of how they work in 50, 70 years.
So what is the big improvement going to be? Is it going to be inductive charging? So everywhere we go, there's just going to be inductive charging at the local bar and restaurant. You just put it on a little.
Am I allowed to plug my company, Ubeam?
Yes. Yes. Tell us.
I think that I do truly believe that technology like Ubeam, which allows you to charge your devices wirelessly over distance, is going to be a thing. I wouldn't have invested otherwise.
Right.
I think that it's a combination of things, though. I do think they need to have better. It's a new type of battery tech that is just more efficient in general than the current lithium systems, and I think it is more availability of power, kind of like Wi-Fi has transformed the way we use internet. I really do think the same is true for power.
All right. No big new product line from Apple. Wall Street fell in love with Apple because they could define a new category. They did it with the iPod, they did it with the iPhone, and they did it with the tablet, the iPad, of course. 3 brand new categories. They absolutely crushed it. They got huge margins on it. Are they going to come out with a watch or a television set, Jessica, that defines a new category? And if so, when?
They are absolutely going to do these things, but I don't think they're as soon as some people would hope for. They're taking their good old time, and obviously I think they feel like they can because they've got some gas in the tank with the iPhone and the iPad. I mean, the growth of the iPad, I think they are very, very optimistic about, and that continuing. I have no informed even predictions on timing on either of those categories of product.
But we know they have 100 people or so working on the watch. Everybody.
They are certainly working on the watch. They are certainly, I mean, I have reported that there are prototypes in Foxconn and elsewhere of a television set. There are also different things they've been considering around set-top boxes and ones that work with cable operators and ones that don't. I think that we're going to continue to hear a lot about discussions there. But, you know, Apple, it's funny because they are known for and have defined these new categories. But what they've really done is iterated and improved for the customer experience on a new category. The iPod was not the first portable music player,
sure, the
et cetera,
Rio was,
et cetera. And so when Samsung's watch came out just a few weeks ago, it was funny because to me we're seeing this play out. But I think one strong piece of evidence of the power the Apple brand still has is I don't think you're going to see a lot of people rushing to get the Samsung smartwatch until they see what Apple's going to come up with.
Right.
And I think Apple still has, you know, that's a testament to the brand, and as long as they can do that, you know, they don't need to squeeze in before the holiday season. And you know, the watch in particular, and I've heard from people inside the company, I mean, this is going to be one of the first products that, you know, really didn't have jobs working on it, crafting it, driving its vision in the same way. And so, you know, you've got to imagine, I mean, they obviously have a great team there, but there is a lot riding on this product. I think it could actually fail and the company would be fine too, though, so that in the sense that, you know, plenty of things don't work out and you move on. But
it would be a reputation hit, and it would play into the narrative that Apple can't get it done without Jobs if that watch is a failure.
That's certainly true, and there will be that narrative. I think, again, this is a red herring. I mean, the company's obviously doing very well, but we want more, and we want new products, and at the same time, we're at this broader point in the technology life cycle, independent of Apple, just where a lot of this stuff is becoming commoditized. We're sort of
by stuff, you mean the phone?
Yeah, the phone is what the phone is going to be.
It's 85% to perfection.
Yes, and so, you know, your screen is not going to get better than the eye, right? And so this is, I think, a broader question, and Apple's going to follow the same pattern it has in these other areas. It's not going to be the first. It's going to wait until it can be very strong with something that has broad appeal.
What about this dividend stuff and giving the money back? Is that just something Steve Jobs would have never done, and just an incredible concession on Cook's part that he just doesn't have a creative way to deploy that capital, or he's just too weak with shareholders?
I think it's honestly the cash had just gotten to levels where it became absurd not to do something. Although it's certainly true that it was not a question on the table with Steve.
Yeah.
And it was a question on the table with Tim. And then I think logically when you look at it, it became a sort of sensible solution.
He doesn't have the credibility to tell the shareholders, like, pound salt, we're keeping the money.
Well, but,
sure, but it's also, I mean, you could make the argument that they should. I mean, in the sense that that's actually just running the company well, and that Steve's attitude was the wrong attitude. So it's clearly a difference, but, Apple's cash, I mean, I think
Still
it was just a
ridiculous.
Still
logical
over $100
thing.
billion, yeah.
And it's not slowing down. And they've announced 2 big buybacks, right? So even the first one, everyone was making a big deal out of, but then they came back again and sort of added to this. So we'll see, but I think you could make a good argument.
What do
It's
you
just
think,
prudent
Ben?
management.
I think Tim Cook is his own man, and it's like we revere Steve Jobs, and rightly so, but it doesn't mean all of his decisions were right. I think that the dividend, the buyback, considering the situation, the circumstances, made sense. And Steve was never going to just consider it because whatever reason, but
Well, because he remembers the days when the company was about to
Yeah.
go out of business. And
that's not anywhere. And
He
it's not
grew
like,
up during the Depression.
yes,
the
no,
tech-
but I
not-
think I think that's actually why he was never on the table with him. And
Should they do a big acquisition? Is there a big acquisition out there? I mean, I always thought they should have just bought Twitter or Dropbox, and they tried obviously, but they just don't seem bold enough to do a big $10 billion.
do they need
acquisition.
to? For what reason? Like if they're
Well, mobile me and the cloud stuff sucks. Dropbox would have been so much better, and just having Twitter, having like an identity platform, I mean, those would be wonderful, wouldn't it?
I don't. They're not a. Here's the thing. So they're fantastic at phone software and hardware.
Right.
But most of their
Services.
especially internet services, are mediocre. A lot of times, or just passable enough. Like I don't know if Twitter would have frankly been better off in there. And I know they had talks so many times over the years, but I don't think Twitter would have been better off. Like they would have had all that much like positivity towards Twitter's like eventual growth. They're not the experts at that. They're experts at hardware. That's why they buy like semiconductor companies. That's why they buy companies for analyzing your fingerprint, things like that. And if there's a big purchase that makes sense in those areas, great. But they are able to innovate most of these things in-house, and that's cheaper, and they have a great R&D team, and they trust them. So they don't need to make big acquisitions for the sake of it. It just they really does this truly make sense, and do these people truly fit in with what Apple is and the culture they have there?
What do you think, Jessica? Why no big acquisition?
I think about this a lot, and I don't know if it's a tough question. I mean, Apple, so...
I mean, if they suck at services, like Ben says, okay, then why not buy it, and then you might actually learn how to do them well.
It's a great question. It's a valid argument. I think their view for everything is, how does it help me sell more iPhones, right? I mean,
Right.
and iAd, which probably the Quattro, which was one of the bigger acquisitions in the space, was really, there's a specific thing, mobile advertising helps me sell more iPhone. They bought Lala in the streaming music space in part to get some of that online services expertise. That did not go well. The products they worked on didn't come to market, and there were culture clash, and a lot of people left. And so this is a company that is very skittish, even about small sort of acquisitions. So I think for a while, the strategy, they've done a lot more very, very small ones. I mean, they've bought a ton of maps companies and sort of trying to seed that way. But there will come a point when we're at a bigger paradigm shift in the industry, and you can argue we're there with cloud services, where I think you can make a very strong case for getting over this sort of skittishness culture thing.
They were in the running for Waze, weren't they?
They didn't do anywhere near hard enough. They should have acquired Waze.
Because their maps suck.
It still sucks. It's
But
better.
you know what? I'm not sure Waze actually would have dramatically improved their mapping
Would have great
product.
data though on traffic, right?
But they're getting a lot of data through partnerships, and they're going to improve maps over time just by solving a lot of the data problems. But I think 2-3 years from now, is there a sort of oddball out there acquisition that they're going to need to do, or you could make an argument they should do? I mean, absolutely. And bankers try to convince me this all the time, by the way. It's in their interest. But I do get the sense the company is looking more at some of these things, but I think the attitude is still, we don't need it. But I think the world may look differently in a few years.
All right, when we get back from commercial break, I want to ask you guys a point-blank question. In 5 years, will Tim Cook be the CEO of Apple? Yes or no? When we get back from commercial break. It's professionalism, Ben. It's like a cliffhanger. See what we're doing there? Dun, dun, dun. I have an answer. All right, listen.
Are we writing this one down too?
Yeah, you're right. Okay, yeah. Write a yes or no. Will Tim Cook in 5 years? Actually, write down for 5 years and for 10, right? So 5 years from now, your answer yes or no, 10 years, and then next to that, yes or no. This is going to be a great turnover. I love it. All right, listen, My Turnstone offers simple and smart furniture solutions for small businesses and startups. I have 50 desks at my office for Inside.com and Launch. We love them. We love them. And they're gorgeous. Here's some beautiful examples of that you can see on my screen. And go to myturnstone.com/twist and you'll get 10% off on your first order. This offer is only for you, our loyal Twist listeners. Thank at myturnstone on your Twitter account. And here is a great contest we're running. Send a picture of yourself grinding away, working hard at your Turnstone desk, and send it to turnstone@launch.co. And we're going to pick one of those people who sends in that photo to turnstone@launch.co, and they will get a free lunch with me, Jason Galganis, and a free buoy from Turnstone, which is their really cool desk, which is sort of like one of those things you balance on so your core gets activated and you know, get a nice flat ripped stomach like you're one of the Winklevys or something like that. He just does some crazy photo of like, you know, shirtless Winklevy, and they're just as loathsome as ever with their perfectly chiseled chests.
I want to picture Winklevi hugging the Facebook founder when they were at
Yeah,
Running Man.
that's what I'm talking about. Exactly that photo. Exactly. Well, so listen, to my friends at My Turnstone, get Jessica and Ben a buoy. All right, myturnstone.com/buoy. Brandis, make sure that happens. That they each get a buoy sent to them. Okay, buoy. It's really cool. And that's it. Okay. No, wait, I have to write my answer too. Okay, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. 1, 2, 3. All right, I'm looking, and 5 years.
For both.
Oh, wow, look at that. Okay, so Jessica and I have the right answer, which is 5 years from now, yes, and 10 years from now, no, right?
Yes.
And then Ben has the wrong answer, which is he will be there 5 and 10 years from now. Ben, explain your incorrect answer.
Well, 10 years, buddy.
Let's start
like
with
a millennia.
Exactly.
It is,
Millennium.
but this is.
How do you see Tim Cook, the person who had no idea how to design a product and clearly is having a hard time managing the personalities inside of Apple, how do you see him holding on for 10 years?
Apple is about consistency, not about changing CEOs every 5-6 years. Yeah. I think they will let Tim Cook go through the course that he wants to, and my suspicion, he's there 10 to 15.
Wow.
So that's like it's.
What is he? 50 years old? 55?
Yeah, he has enough. He's not going to be going right.
Excellent shape. Works out every day.
He looks fit,
you
doesn't
read
he?
the profiles of the man.
Yeah, he does.
But I think so. I think
52.
Tim plays a different role as a CEO than, you know, the product guy. I mean, it is true that he does not know a lot about product and all that, but you know, from my sense of it, he's the voice of Apple, you know, and he's the one who's assembling the teams. And I mean, people there love him. And, you know, I don't know where some of this bogus stuff about the board came from. I think it's ridiculous. I mean, I really do think that he...
Oh, what was the bogus stuff about the board? The board didn't like him?
There's a report that the board was grumbling a little bit about him. I think it was CNBC. And, you know, I imagine, knowing nothing about that the reporters picked up on, you know, the board just asking questions of the strategy, as probably boards are supposed to do.
Yeah.
But when you ask people throughout the organization, even people honestly who aren't sure about Apple's product direction, you ask them about Tim, and he's loved. He's loved. And I remember when there was some agitation over the stock earlier this year, and David Einhorn was getting in, and blah blah blah. And I was asking investors, and they could tell you a million things Apple was doing wrong, and then they say, "Well, thank God Tim is there still." I mean,
so he's a stabilizing force in investors' minds. I think he's a stabilizing
force in everyone's mind, and it's hard for me to see something that would dislodge him. But I do think, obviously, 10 years from now, I mean, this is a man who considers himself sort of the steward of everything that is Apple and the culture and the mentality. And
but is he a placeholder for the next job? Is that what Steve Jobs looked at? Like, I don't think this guy's the placeholder until they find the next.
Steve's not going to pick what he thinks is a placeholder. No. I think he picked a true successor. And I think what you were saying makes me still think even more that he will be there 10 years from now. The investors love him. The team loves him. Like, changing a CEO takes a lot. Like, they will not do it without a really clear and specific succession plan. And I think he will go out on his own terms. He'll retire in his own time. Like, I'll bet a sushi dinner on it too.
All right. Well, there we go. There's 2 sushi dinners going here. So the 2 long bets.
Lost track. We need.
Yeah, Jessica, we're screwed. We're going to be buying a lot of sushi. If Twitter comes out at a $10 billion valuation and Tim Cook's here for 10 years,
Yeah.
Omakase.
I'm moving.
Omakase is going to be expensive. Yeah, we're taking you to Whole Foods for sushi. The only issue is, what if the watch and the TV fail? If the watch and the TV do not become equivalent to iPod, iPhone, tablet success, is that it for Tim?
I don't think that's it for Tim. I completely agree, Tim. The day that he's no longer CEO is on his own terms, but it's just how the company works. But I do think that it's a good question. What happens if those products don't
they go
move the needle?
sideways.
I mean, I think there is still a lot of growth left in the existing products, but this company starts to be valued a little bit differently if there isn't another.
I have to say, I was very impressed with the iPhone 5S because it had hardcore technology advances in the product. It wasn't like the 5C, a cosmetic change. The S had this is a 64-bit processor, it's twice as fast, and the fingerprint technology. So I do think that it's nice to see the pipeline has some at least technological advancement in it, because I was starting to think, I have the Samsung S4 here I'm holding up, and I was like, this is a much better phone than the 5. Much better. The screen size is bigger, the processor's faster, I just enjoyed it more. And even the Lumia, whatever the heck it's called, with the Carl Zeiss lens, a much better camera, but they're focusing on the right things, are they not, with the 5S?
Yeah.
The camera and the processor?
I think so, and they would say they're focusing on the things that people want. So, better quality in the camera. The Samsung phones have a lot of bells and whistles, but I haven't used a lot of the features that where you wave your hand and voodoo happens or whatever it is. So, but yes, Apple's absolutely innovating, and
all right, let's look at the next 3. Let's look at the launches. Where am I at here? Hold on, I'm looking at my notes here. There's so many notes.
I think there was some.
Oh, here we go. Bros behaving badly. All right, here we go. Play the quick video. I hate to do it, but we have to talk about it because it's all the news. At TechCrunch Disrupt. Can we hear?
Hey guys, we're from Sydney, Australia, and we're here to bring you
TWiST.
TWiST.
TWiST is an app where you take photos of yourself staring at tits.
G'day guys, we're from Sydney, Australia, and we're here to bring you
TWiST.
TWiST.
TWiST is an app where you take photos of yourself staring at tits.
Why, Dave? Why?
Well, I'll tell you, Jethro. It's science, my good friend. Science.
Science?
Did you know that looking at breasts is directly linked with a good, healthy heart?
So what's the problem, Dave?
Well, women just aren't that warm to it.
All right, there you have it. Ridiculous. At TechCrunch Disrupt, TWiST, and another guy got up on stage and simulated masturbation with his phone. These were some of the first companies to launch at TechCrunch. Ben, you're sighing. Jessica, you're a woman, and what are your thoughts when you see this? I don't know if you have kids or a daughter. You have kids?
no kids.
I have a daughter. You have kids?
No kids.
No kids, all right. Well, anyway, as a woman, when you see this stuff in the technology industry, coming from what most people would consider the publication of record, TechCrunch, what do you think?
I think there's really bad taste and idiots everywhere, to be
Yeah.
honest. I don't think this is unique to the tech industry. And I also don't think you can sort of blame the TechCrunch or anyone else for this. I think it's an individual.
They did publish the articles, though, from their own account. They did blog about it and tweet.
That's true.
This stuff.
No, that is true. And
there was some level of filtering going on.
That's true, and they could have done a better job on that. But look, I think there are bad actors everywhere, and people think this is funny, and it's not. And I just don't think it's unique to this industry, and it's unfortunate we have to all be subjected to it.
I disagree a little bit. I agree that there are bad actors in every industry. I think the problem is that the filter should have kicked in. Someone should have thought, gee, this is not appropriate to have. But it did not click with anyone until it was long too late. And this happens at a lot of places. Like the guy from the PAX from Business Insider. Like, someone should have thought, gee, these tweets that my employee is tweeting are wrong.
Yeah, just to fill people on what happened there, midweek in the industry, this is TechCrunch Disrupt stuff happened in the early part. Midweek, the CTO of Business Insider, Valliwag, looks at his tweets that have been going on for years, and he's using the N-word, he's saying stuff about women and Jewish people. that is just wildly offensive and had been happening for years. And I actually talked to somebody who works at Business Insider who said they've felt uncomfortable about this for over a year. So this is something that was known inside that organization, clearly.
There should have been proactivity, be like, we don't want that in our organization or in any organization. But it took a controversy to oust him. I think that the biggest thing is getting the people in positions of power and authority to have this filtered mindset of these things are wrong, we need to stop it, and to think a little bit about we need to find ways to be more inclusive and find ways to tackle our biases, both unconscious and conscious.
And it's more acute of a problem for the tech industry just because we have this ecosystem of everything's written about and blogged about and tracked, and things spread very, very quickly. And so I think the tech industry has to be extra vigilant, right, in monitoring this, because the consequences can be far greater and damaging for the stuff getting out there. But I think that you could probably find a number of other companies whose senior employees had, we're doing this kind of thing too. I mean, I just think that these attitudes are not unique to the tech industry at all. And we use the mediums more aggressively, and
that might be a big thing. You're right, because in a financial services place, most of them don't tweet because of the regulations and such. They'll just say it internally to people, and it doesn't spread out. But when you put it on Twitter,
and you're live streaming the event,
and
you're tweeting it out and everything, different level. Well, I mean, I do give Henry Blodgett credit. He tossed the guy immediately and just said, "Hey, listen, that's not what we stand for. I mean, we have employees who, are really offended by what's being said." So good job there for Henry Blodgett. Okay, moving on. That's enough time for stupidity. 3 companies this week, 2 which launched at Disrupt: Layer, call and messaging platform, one Disrupt. Let's just play like maybe 15 or 20 seconds of that video, Brandis.
Here comes Layer, a really easy way to add messaging, voice, and video to any mobile or web app. Today I want to show you 3 demos that will clearly show you how easy it is to build on top of Layer. I'll start with messaging. Can you please switch to the Elmo? So the 2 phones on the left are mine, and the right phone is Ron's. So Ron is going to send me a message replying to what I sent him before, and you will see that the message is going to be delivered instantaneously. All the states are synced on the 2 devices on the right. But the device on the far left is offline. So Rocky is going to bring it back online, and you will see that immediately when it gets connected, the state will get synced to that device as well, right?
Okay, so there you have it. You can basically put messaging into any app. The second launch of the week was Soil IQ. Let's just play a couple seconds of that.
Soil IQ is a wireless soil sensor, a precision agriculture sensor for small gardens and farms. The device measures and streams humidity, temperature, moisture, pH, and plant-available light to the cloud instantly. The device is powered by a solar panel.
Okay, and let's play a little bit of haptics, which is uses a camera to read 3D motion, turns any surface into multi-touch, control a computer, TV, or other screen. Here's haptics in action.
What does haptics do? Haptics turns any flat surface into a multi-touch surface. You aim it any area you want, plug it into your computer, and that area becomes a multi-touch surface that you can use to click, pinch to zoom, or swipe to scroll. It's as if you took the screen out of the display, placed it on top of another surface, and made that surface multi-touch.
All right, there you go. 3 startups this week. Haptics beat their 100K goal for the 3D multi-touch sensor. It's sort of, I guess, similar to, it's sort of different than Connect because it's sensing where your hand is, or is it the same? I can't tell.
It's a little more granular, I think. It reminds me a lot of Leap Motion, which is another one where, so it's designed, not for big motions across TV and gaming, but for shorter ones.
Like a keyboard, maybe.
Exactly, for using touchscreen with a laptop or something else.
All right, so of these 3, Layer, Soil IQ, or haptics, which was your launch of the week? And I guess, Jessica, which one would you be most apt to write a feature story about? And Ben, which would you most apt to invest in?
That was a good question. I flip-flop between layer and haptics because I like them both a lot, and I think they're big problems. And that.
Why? Why do you like them both? Tell me.
So I think with layer, if you think of the mobile ecosystem and what I think of mapping, and mapping's the kind of thing, so many apps need maps, but you have a few players that built them and then they integrate them because mapping's a hard problem. And I think messaging is one of those problems, and I don't see anything out there that is doing that now, although there are competitors to layer, but I'm kind of sold on their pitch. Now, the problem is they don't have a lot of details. They aren't talking about a lot of apps that are integrating messaging.
It's early.
I also wonder, to be honest, if this is like if a Google or a Facebook were to release a messaging API or something like that, not that they would, but I just think other bigger players could
Facebook
get.
launched a commenting platform, which then everybody in the blogosphere just absolutely put at the bottom of their comments. I mean, some people still use Discuss, but that was a major deployment for Facebook.
And then, haptics, I'm a big believer and very excited about new generation interfaces and controlling, and like Leap Motion a lot. I don't know a ton about haptics and how
Why are you a
good
big fan of that?
I just think that there are going to be so many applications, from robotics to medicine to education. I don't think that I think we're going to have lots of different paradigms for controlling devices going forward. So I don't think that touch isn't going to vanish, or that we're not going to at some point actually click a mouse or something like that. But I think if you think about, robotics is a great example. That there are going to be applications. They may be more specialized than some people would think, but I think there are going to be. And
did you see the video of Elon Musk using, I guess it was the Leap, to rotate the rocket in real time? And you're like, okay, he is Tony Stark.
And I think that's true. But
So who's your pick?
I'm going to pick haptics, to be honest.
Very good. All right, there you go. So somebody's going to get a feature story assignment later today for haptics. All right, now, Ben, I wanted you to do this based on an investment. So which one would you be most likely to cut one of the Dominate Fund's, magical checks to? Those magical Dominate
Those checks do come with magic and rainbows.
Absolutely. Chocolate bar attached.
I'll say a quick thing about all three of them.
Go through all three.
Tell
me your thinking.
How investorly of you.
Yes.
I think a lot in terms of who the customer is and how easy or hard it is to sell, and then the business model. You think about Layer. It's I think it's very easy to convince a lot of devs to integrate that in, and if you're not, and I think they're taking the right approach where you turn it into a platform, and then you can make a lot of money when you build the platform and you have the reach. So I think that's a smart way to go about it.
Didn't Discuss though have a problem in trying to figure out their monetization eventually? Like some of those comment platforms?
But
they hit scale, but what's the business?
I think Layer's charging based on usage, right?
Oh, okay. So they're charging.
Which is probably a better way. So there's a positive and negative to that, because a lot of developers don't pay all that much for integration of those things.
They're a tough customer to have.
Yeah, wait, it's not free?
Yeah.
So think about most of the money for any company comes from a small group of big buyers. Even a lot of consumer things, the money comes from big advertisers and things like that. So is there will a Facebook use something like a Layer, or will a big software company?
No.
Which is probably a growth problem for them. I do like them though.
Okay.
Soil IQ is really cool, nifty thing, but it's really also tough to sell to farms, and farmers are just slower to purchase and to adopt. It'll take time, although I just love anything that does with nature. So I think I will pick haptics, if only because I think that there's a huge opportunity for building great new kinds of interfaces, and I think you see that the success of Leap Motion, thing like that. There is definitely demand. I tried the Oculus Rift, for example, finally a couple days ago. I don't know if you've tried that before.
I haven't tried it. I've seen it.
It's worth it. It's amazing. So for those who don't know, it's basically it's the true
true
goggles.
Google Glass.
Yeah, you put it on and you're like, oh my God, I'm in space. But I think these are the kind of things.
So they're big, huge goggles. They take up your whole field of vision, and you feel like you're in, the holodeck on Star Trek? Or you feel like you're in a 3D movie?
That's a perfect example. Yeah, it's like a holodeck.
Does it feel that way?
Yeah, it definitely does. I tried it out with Asa Raskin, the founder of Massive Health, and he made these programs where you would these stars were shooting by you, and you're like, Whoa, it was trippy. Like
you get nauseous? You get like
you
motion
can
sickness?
if it's going too fast. Oh yeah, you could truly get motion sick, I think.
So
But
are they going to combine haptics with Oculus Rift? So
I think
that,
there's gonna be a lot of those. I think
I mean, the path to market for these guys clearly isn't selling us all things we're going to clip onto things. It's clearly to get licensing deals and get
they'll
embedded
pay.
in OEMs, and I think, yeah.
So embedded into your laptop, embedded into...
Oh, totally. And Leap's also going in that direction. And so there, the question is, can the technology beat whatever internally Microsoft and Apple is undoubtedly developing? And or is the team good enough that it'll get acquired to go work on whatever they're undoubtedly developing? So
you would invest in haptics, huh?
yeah, I would. I'd have to look at the teams more, of course, but that would be. I think the one with the highest potential ceiling is haptics.
Okay. Well,
what about you, Jason?
Well, that. Thank you. Let me think. Let me think about that. All right. Listen, layer is certainly of the moment, right? Messaging is the big rage, so I understand that it has that sexiness to it. I don't think there's a business model there, and I do think if there is a business model there, that Twitter, Facebook, and others will capitalize on it. So I wouldn't invest in it. I might use it for Inside.com's app or something like that. Just like I might use Discuss, but I would be a little concerned about the business model. So I sort of agree with you guys. Fascinated, but it's just a little concerned on a business basis. Now, that leaves two, Soil IQ and haptics. Soil IQ, I have a little bit of an advantage because I met with the company, and I do think that there is technology already out there that farmers are actually using. And this is sort of one of those situations where they've built from the ground up a technology that is a magnitude cheaper and a magnitude easier to use and with better features. So they are going to be able to get that into market and undercut the people who are currently doing it, and it's a huge global industry that they could take on. So the industry, although you're correct, it might be slow to do it, they've built something truly disruptive. So I've got a little inside thing. I would probably invest in Soil IQ, and I would be very interested, and I probably, I don't know, I want to say anything, but I'm actually thinking about investing in Soil IQ because I like those guys, and I think they're doing good stuff. Now, I get to haptics, obviously fascinated. I think we might be 5 or 10 years out from these applications being there. So I'm a little bit concerned that this could be somebody who built something absolutely extraordinary that they just are not going to have the runway to get there. But I do think haptics is more exciting than Soil IQ. But I think Soil IQ has such a huge market on a global basis. Africa, Asia, Europe, South America, just everybody's farming everywhere. And if you can just get a 1% advantage in farming, it could lead to huge profits. So I would pick Soil IQ.
One thing that was interesting to me about Soil IQ is maybe this was just for the disrupt crowd, but they were positioning it as sort of the home farmer and the industrial farmer.
Right.
And, in some ideal world, I am also a home farmer and have a beautiful vegetable garden, but I don't. So maybe that was just because they were playing to the crowd here, but I can't see this taking, if your market is home farmers, I was a little...
No, it's got to be the enterprise, the big farms.
I think it's like one of, you can think about it like sort of bring your own product to work kind of thing. If Yammer works for you and your small team, it will work for all of your 1,000-person company kind of thing, like that bottom-up IT. I think that's a sort of Soil IQ thing, which is, hey, if we can do your, whatever it is, 100 by 100 foot backyard, we can do 1,000 100 by 100 foot installations, and they're a mesh network sort of.
But I wonder why they're even bothering with it, because it's not like I can, as a home
probably
farmer,
PR.
help.
I think it's PR.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Get out of that. Focus on your customer.
Yeah.
Fewer blog posts, you'll make more money. It'll be great.
I also think a lot about the startups that I've seen so far that have tackled farming, and it's just taken longer for them to grow than a lot of them expected. Like, there's not very many, if any, like really big, good success stories. Maybe Soil IQ is it. I do agree, farming's a huge market, but it takes sometimes it takes some of these farmers years before they decide to switch. So I think it's a very good sustainable business. I'm just not sure how long it'll take.
I am just so enamored with sensor technology. I don't know about you guys, but holy shit, is this stuff the real deal? I mean, it's getting so cheap to put sensors and stuff that it's starting to feel like we're going to be able to record everything going on everywhere at all times, which is scary on an NSA basis, but inspiring on just an early warning detection basis.
Can I give you a hypothetical question?
Please.
Someone creates a sensor that you put into like your wrist, like a millimeter, couple millimeters down, tracks everything.
Let's do it.
You would do it?
Totally do it. Of course. I'm a narcissist. Come on.
I'd do it too.
I think it's the...
Who doesn't want all those insights? Listen,
Fair
and
point.
God forbid I got some crazy disease. I want to know.
That's
You know, like I'm not going to stick my head in the sand. You know, if I got some crazy disease, I want to know now. If I got 6 months left,
tackle
man.
the security issues around that, and I think it's golden. Mm-hmm. And I would want that too, but you got to get the security issues out of the way first.
There is a lot of that going on, isn't there? Like are you guys worried about this NSA stuff and this sort of privacy issues? It seemed like we all thought at some point privacy was a soft issue until there was a tipping point. Is this a real tipping point, the NSA PRISM stuff? Like the consumers actually going to care? Affect behavior?
I don't see a lot of evidence it's changing behavior. And, you know, inevitably the day after something like this happens, our inboxes or mine are filled with, you know, the safe NSA spying-free version of email, whatever. And, you know, I don't think that takes off. But, you know, in the broader zeitgeist of how consumers think about this, I think, sure. But I think it's inevitable that people, you know, are more mindful of it and going to make different choices.
So consumer behavior doesn't change.
I don't think
What about enterprise behavior, Ben? I mean, do you think all this NSA stuff is impacting? I was on a discussion group, and people were saying maybe we should be off Google Groups because Google is saying they kind of read email and they're sort of upfront about you shouldn't expect email privacy. So does that mean they're actually going into people's accounts and reading it, which I find ridiculous? But do you think it's going to affect enterprise computing and cloud computing?
It depends on the level. Like the ones that truly need security don't use Google Groups to do the communications. They really have built in, you know, in-house like security kind of things. I remember there was that like debate between the CEO of VMware and Mark Andreessen about this kind of thing. And I actually agree some with VMware in the sense that for some companies you want to have all that stuff in-house so that you can be sure that your stuff is protected. So as an enterprise, so it's somewhere in the middle on them. But for most people, like I think they're like if you're already using Gmail or you're already using Microsoft Azure or whatever else, you're almost certainly still using it, and very few people will change. My bigger question is, will it change the way we actually vote certain people in or out of office? And I don't know if there is an issue that will fix the fundamental problems we have with voting for members of the House of Representatives, for example. There'd have to be some kind of such seismic issue to.
I don't even think it's on the average voter's mind enough to become an issue on that.
What about the tech industry? My God, they courted Obama like crazy. Obama courted them. Everybody's going to $30,000 lunches with Obama. Everybody's path feeds and is, you know, this entrepreneur with Obama, that entrepreneur, that Zuck's house, Cheryl's house, everybody's got Obama at their house. Marissa, Jesus, I mean, you feel like he's just sleeping over everybody's house, and everybody's giving him $30,000. I mean, how disappointed is the technology industry with Obama?
You know, I may get the details of this wrong, but I think my former colleague Shira Ovide wrote about a fundraiser for Obama happening in Palo Alto the evening this news broke, and it didn't come up.
Really?
So
what does that mean?
I was shocked, and I think it shows that that audience at that time was there for a different reason. It was to shake the president's hand or whatever, and it's not that type of
weak
audience.
Is that?
So,
weak sauce.
How many people do you think at that level is going? There's very, very few people. Like a lot of people will say, you know, I would confront President Obama on that sort of thing.
Yeah,
but when you're actually in that room with all those other people,
the aura of the president,
the aura of the president, or the other people around you, are you going to actually do that? That would be fantastic, and someone
Kara
should.
Swisher would.
I was going to say, journalists would.
Yeah,
Journalists are like, that's the role.
Well, that's why they don't let us into those things.
Exactly.
You know?
But think about how embarrassing this is becoming, though, for the technology industry. Marissa was just being raked over the coals about it by
But the tech industry's flipped it, right? So now, and we saw this come out at Disrupt with Zuck and Marissa, everyone's talking about how they're now suing the government, which they are, and they do want to be more transparent. But as a PR narrative, they've gone from being, you know, the complicit whatever to now they're pushing against it. And look, all those guys are in a tough spot, and it's a balancing act, yada yada. But I think, you know, a few months ago we were reading stories about, you know, is Silicon Valley complicit with spying, and now we're reading stories about, you know, them suing the government. So there's some masterful PR people changing.
And let me be
narratives.
a total cynic here. God forbid there was another 9/11 or anything remotely close to it. I mean, the Boston bombing was horrific, but on a scale, it was, you know, a small percentage of the death toll 9/11, but if we had an Al-Qaeda attack in the last 5 years, this would be a non-issue. Because most Americans would be like, you know what? I'm okay with you reading our Gmail if it stops another, whatever bombing it was, the Atlanta bombing, where 500 people died at Al-Qaeda's hands. You agree with that?
I do completely agree with that. And even the day after this happened, there was a lot of that attitude expressed as well. And I feel like I saw a lot of people posting on Facebook with that idea. So it's hard to believe that there won't be huge consequences coming out of all of this in terms of changing behavior and attitudes, but I don't see it yet. So
it feels like we got a little too aggressive, though, in the amount of spying we're doing. It also feels unnecessary.
It also feels like we don't really know what's going on still, right? I mean, I know we know a lot more, and the government, after 4 different explanations, maybe has brought something that resembles clarity. But is it just foreign people using these services? Is it? I'm sure we don't even know the half of it. We can't believe that Snowden's slides are not representative, given what we know about him. So I think that resigns most people to just sort of coming to terms with it in some abstract way and hoping that it's used for good, not bad.
All right, as we wrap up here, I hate to get all political, but Ben, you guys are so good at playing along with my games of actually giving an answer. That's the great thing about journalists is they actually will give an answer. If you guys were CEOs, they'd be like, I don't want to give an answer. I want to. But Snowden, Bradley Manning, hero, villain, hero, traitor, other. Hero, traitor, other. It's sort of like
it sounds
like another game.
Well, yeah, it's like kill, marry, or
whatever.
Yeah, or whatever.
There's another distasteful game called kill, marry, or
whatever.
Have relations with. We're not going to talk about that game. But hero, traitor, other. What do you guys think? And how will history look at them? Because that's really what matters, not of the moment. But how do you think Bradley Manning? Let's start there. Hero, traitor, other. How does he look today? How does he look historically?
I'll start with that one.
Yeah.
I think Bradley Manning, and I'm different answers for Manning and Snowden, in my opinion.
That's why I'm asking them separately.
Other for Manning. It's to me like there were some altruistic reasons, but I also agree that you don't just dump everything all out there. One of the things I credit Snowden for was giving it to journalists who are going to filter the whole thing out. And a lot of the stuff that he gave to them, they have not published and will never publish because they're being discerning about what should and should not go out there. And I think that's a smarter approach.
So where do you put him, Snowden? History. We'll see him as?
Minor hero with flaws.
I was going to say, history might even forget him. I mean, it's hard to say, but I also think the more that comes out, we realize we don't really know his motives, much about him. I think there's a lot that's suspicious about
Snowden.
The Edward Snowden show on Russian TV.
Yeah, of course.
I'm just playing. I have no.
Oh, I thought that was like an announcement.
Yeah, you missed it.
Snowden called me today. He's like, I'm doing a TV show.
Well, Bradley Manning. And what are your thoughts on Bradley Manning?
It's really, I don't know. So I mean, I think that I am all for transparency and getting the facts out there, but I'm not for breaking the law and breaking, so I think it's incredibly complicated, but I don't think either of these things will, we like to compare them to the Pentagon Papers and all that kind of stuff too, but I think we're just sort of in the moment, and that when we look back, these are not going to be major things, and we'll kind of see. But these get to really tough issues that I haven't resolved in my own mind. So.
All right, very good. This is great. You guys are awesome for playing along with them. I'll give you the correct answer.
Please enlighten us.
No, I don't have the correct answer. Obviously, it's very complex, and I think the astute points you both made were, Jessica, on your part, we don't even know. Like we could be at the tip of the iceberg. We could know 90%, or we might know 10%. There's no way of knowing what we don't know yet, right? So there's a lot that's still come out. And I think Ben, very astute. One person did a data dump, and one person is doing, is whistleblowing through journalists who are vetting that this stuff doesn't result in people being killed.
He's then also doing like live blogs, right? So I mean, I don't think we can give Snowden as much credit. yes, he went to places that would filter it, but then he established his own relationship with his own agenda directly with the public through these reporters, through like doing a live chat on the Guardian's website. So,
but I thought his live chat was sort of like, hey, listen, here's why I'm doing this, try to understand me, as opposed to Bradley Manning, who was like, nobody knows what's going on there. And I think history is going to look at Bradley Manning as a troubled individual who maybe was going through some personal stuff, who was taken advantage of by a really kind of sleazy guy, Assange, who is just
I'm curious.
Probably a bit of a prick.
Have you seen Fifth Estate yet?
I haven't.
I'm gonna be seeing it next week. They're doing a couple
I
screenings.
can't wait to see it.
I'm curious to see
how they portray Assange. I think Assange is a creep. I think it's a creep. I think he's probably guilty of some bad things.
Did you read the?
I tend to.
Fair Variety or something
I
of the
did,
sort?
yeah.
That was
Sarah
a fascinating one.
Ellison
You should
read.
read that if you
I haven't
haven't.
read that yet. What is it? What is the
It's just
takeaway?
this picture of him holed up in the embassy trying to run this global media president, running for Senate, sort of, you know. It's just a little snapshot of what his life is like right now. It's really interesting.
I think the guy's a creep. I think he
took
wants to be
over.
famous, and I think he took advantage of Bradley Manning.
He took over.
That's my opinion. What do you think? I'm right or wrong, Jessica?
I buy that. Yes.
Yeah. See,
buy
there you
it.
go.
He took over the women's bathroom at the Ecuadorian embassy because it was quote unquote quieter and had to all like move it to a whole nother place.
And he bought the reporter's birthday cake on his birthday, who were staked out.
Yeah, that's
is
true.
in,
yeah.
He's just a weird, creepy
profile.
dude.
He's
worst guy you could ever have as a front man for your organization. Just creepy and weird, and like he wants to be famous too much. It's a little too much about him. Too much about Assange.
The Ecuadorian embassy pushed back when he was like, "We got like papers and that," and they're like, "No, we didn't."
But now Snowden. Snowden, I think, is something that's going to be a lasting trend, which is this young generation, these millennials. Millennials have a deep-rooted sense of like purpose, and you know they have their own problems with like, I don't know, going to work or having their own apartment and not living with their parents. You know, putting that aside, like the worst of millennials, the best part about these millennials is they really don't have like some crazy loyalty to the government. They have like this loyalty to like purpose, and they're almost like a throwback to like 60s hippies, yippies, whatever. And I think there's a lot of Snowdens out there. And I think it's going to be really hard for the military-industrial complex to be like, we want you to do this really unethical stuff and shut up about it. Because they just don't, they're not wired that way. They're like, yeah.
Do you think the average millennial or anyone else would invest the energy to be able to do that and not suffer the consequences, right? I mean, for that.
They're entitled, like, that they wouldn't want to put themselves at jeopardy.
But also, I mean, it's one thing to think about having a noble purpose. It's the other thing to wreak havoc and orchestrate a plan that's going to require you to live in 6 countries and et cetera, et cetera.
I do think there's a larger number of them in this generation than other generations.
It only takes one. So
I think there's dozens waiting to come out. I think there's a dozen Snowdens right now stealing documents and putting them in drop boxes and locking them up and getting ready to do the exact same thing. I don't think they're loyal to this country. I don't think they look at the United States as like the best country anymore. And we are not the best country anymore. If we're torturing people, how are we the best country? You know, are we looking after the most vulnerable people in our society? No, we're not.
Then why are those people going to go into those jobs in the first place? Because they have a different ideal of what it's going to be like.
Yeah, maybe, exactly. They go in, they think like, hey, I'm going to do some good. It's going to be like Homeland. And then they go in and see how like corrupt it is. You love Homeland?
Love.
I think the conclusion, the quote-unquote conclusion of the Snowden saga will influence that a lot. What does Snowden do a year from now when he has to leave Russia? Does he end up, getting captured somehow? Does he end up...
But even now, so you're sitting at your desk and you've got that Dropbox thing ready to go, and do you want to be stuck in airports and embassies in the middle of who knows what? I mean, it's not exactly
you could also be
romantic
better
fate that has...
You might maybe now some of the most secure beforehand.
You could, but I just don't think that the average person is doing that.
It takes a unique individual.
But it does seem like, look, there's undoubtedly, I mean, just from the technology that's available by itself, you've got to believe that more people are thinking along these lines, and it's a big challenge for the government and for companies. We're
gonna have to own our own behavior. Like this idea that like your worst behavior is not going to eventually make it out into the public. As we've seen in our industry, sometimes really bad behavior does get exposed.
The attitude you should have, and I tell this to
names redacted.
Yeah, I tell my companies, like, consider everything you do could eventually go public and conduct yourself to a standard that you'd be proud of all the time.
Yeah.
And if you're not, then find the ways to change it.
Yeah, if you're beating and raping women, you might want to stop. Okay. Oh, God, that was just brutal. I didn't mention anybody's name. I'm just saying if you were to be doing something like that, you probably would want to stop at some point.
Wisdom.
Just pearls of wisdom
Pearls of
from This Week in Startups. Anyway, this has been an amazing episode. Ben Parr, what a great guest you've been historically, and again, you brought it today. Dominate Fund, dominatefund.com. If you are a high net worth individual and you want to invest in a fund, Ben cannot tell you to do so in the Dominate Fund. But I can tell you, if you're a billionaire, sure, I would. If I was a billionaire, I'd toss Ben $2-3 million for his fund. Why not? I think it's going to be a great return. I could sell the shit out of that. Dominate Fund, I predict, will have a 5,000% return. There you go. You heard it here first. Jessica Lessing, continued success, breaking tons of awesome news and actually practicing the art of journalism. You actually do random acts of journalism.
Random acts.
Random
Try to do
acts.
consistent acts of journalism.
Exactly,
but
exactly. No, so random acts of journalists actually occur in the industry. We're all cannot wait for your publication. But in the meantime, you can go to jessicalesson.com and you can follow at Jessica Lesson. Thank you, Brandis, for the flawless technology execution on the program. Thanks, Gina, for booking great guests. Thanks, Demont, for paying the bills, and Turnstone and Mandrill. Thank you so much. We'll see you all. Oh, any other plugs? You guys got any plugs? I mean, I plugged the heck out of everything.
I'll give you
Thank
one.
you for the plugs.
I'll give you one more minor one.
Give me another
I'm
plug.
hinting.
Any company you're proud of investing in?
Well, I'm proud of all my companies.
I know,
love
but
all my
one that you're
children.
like, oh my God, I can't believe I got to invest in this, and it happened in the last 30 days.
I will talk about some of that in a month or two.
Okay, good.
I'm also going to be, in a few weeks, there'll be more about a book that I'm writing.
Oh, you're writing a book.
I'm
Good for you.
So
Is that the first?
it will be the first, and it was inspired by the fund.
Okay.
And
So it's about making listicles, or what is it about?
it's about the science. It's about the science of attention and why we pay attention to certain people, products.
So in a way, yes,
So it
I
is
was
about
right. So it is
listicles.
about listicles. Is the title listicles, and why we pay attention to them?
There are no listicles, although I did interview Jonah from BuzzFeed for the book.
Okay, very good. We'll look forward to that book. And you have a book deal? You have an actual deal, or you're shopping?
The deal is all done. I'll be announcing all that soon.
Congratulations. That's great. Have you written a book, Jessica?
I have not written a book.
You must
Focused
get a
on
ton
the
of offers.
publication. Focused on the publication.
They must offer you, like, write the book about Twitter, write the book about Facebook, write the book about
I like
that.
the real-time book, the history as it
I'm
unfolds.
so intimidated by writing a book. I have a book agent. I get a lot of book offers. I'm just like,
Book-
God.
Books are like you have to.
I'm intimidated.
It's tough.
You have to have something to
Ebooks. Write
say.
an ebook.
I know. Well, when I write an email newsletter, sometimes it's 5,000 words, so it is like an ebook. But it seems like you have to have something really important to say to want to write 50,000 words a book. And this seems like how we give attention to things seems like a really good one. I like that idea.
It's going to be good.
Thank you.
All right. This has been a great episode, and you can follow me at Jason on Twitter. Yes, I'm showing off. I have my first name on Twitter. I'm part of the First Name Club. We'll see you next time on This Week in Startups.